Hey everybody. Hey my peeps. What's up? How's everybody doing today? Well, I thought that I would make a video this morning about music. I was going to talk about this last night, but I just never got around to making a video. And usually when I have ideas like this or thoughts about certain things, I just think, well, what's the point in even talking about that, you know? It's just like, I'll just end up rambling about music, which is probably what I'm going to do here. But I think it's I think it's such a crucial part of my life. It's such an important part of my life and my family's life that without music, it would be a completely different world. And I do know people who don't listen to music. I mean, at all. And some of them are strange. I don't know how a person can't enjoy music, but, to each his own. I'm not going to get into the history of music and where it comes from and why certain notes sound good together and why the scales exist as they do with the ratios that they have. It's pretty amazing, the way that we perceive sound, and we could trace it back to natural happenings on the planet. I mean, the birds sing songs. It's pretty obvious that we've been listening to these natural sounds forever until we could create instruments to replicate these sounds. Now, over the past 40 years, things have changed drastically with music because of synthesizers. I mean, it's not good or bad. It just is what it is. But there was a time when raw instruments were played in just bands, and a lot of the rock and roll was new, like back in the 60s and 70s. And I'll tell you this story because I remember when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I remember crying because I was born at the wrong time. Like, I wasn't crying, like bawling, but I started like to well up and tear up because I was thinking about how awesome it would be to grow up in the 60s with all the great music they had. And then it hit me that, wait, I still have access to all this music and new music. Because in the 80s and 90s there was a lot of good music that came out too. And I'm not going to be one of those generationalists who's like, well, now all the music sucks because I'm older. No, there's some good music out there. It's just that anybody can make an album, and it seems like everybody's trying to outdo each other with complexity. Sometimes the simplest, most beautiful thing is just an acoustic guitar. I bought this guitar when I was 18 years old. It was one of my first paychecks. I bought this. It was $150. It's a Oscar Schmidt by Washburn. Nothing special, but I've seen a lot of guitars come and go over the years, my friends, and this thing has lasted me 25 years now. It's really hard to get inspired sometimes, and so that's kind of why I'm making this music video. I was listening to some old school tunes this morning, and it just always just bring, of course I've always been a grateful, everybody knows I'm a deadhead if you follow my channel, but and I do like Led Zeppelin and a lot of the other 70s rock. I love Black Sabbath, but I also love Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, bands like America or Jerry Rafferty, something just probably like, who the hell is that? But I like everything, let's put it that way. And so this morning I was listening to, just letting YouTube just play randomly, and Dust in the Wind came on, and I was like, holy shit, I used to play this song all the time. I could play the whole song all the way through when I was like 16, and then for some reason I just forgot about it. So I practiced a little bit and just fell right back into it. And then there was this other one, Simple Man, Leonard Skinner. But there's this song, For What It's Worth, by by Buffalo Springfield. It's, the song. Stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. And it's a great song. And when it came on, I'm like, I'm just going to learn this. I'm going to play it. So I printed the lyrics. I got the chords in my head. Very simple progression, 5 chords, I think. And played the song all the way through 3 or 4 times. Then I recorded it, and then I made a video about it just before this one. Or a recording of me playing it. And yes, I am going to upload it to YouTube, and I'm sure it's far from being perfect, but that's not my intention. The intention was to talk about the meaning behind those lyrics. I feel like we're in the same place we were back in the day, so much chaos and turmoil in the streets about, the future of the planet, the future of the people, and a lot of the music from the 60s and 70s reflected that angst, especially after the Vietnam War, and that's what music really is. It's a way of reflecting what we see around us. And I was talking with someone earlier about this, or just left a comment or response to someone on a different video about how music has changed so much, but there's there's not the same, you can have the same feelings. Everybody has relationships, and, you know, they can sing about the same old situations we have that everyone runs into, lost loves and stuff like that. But there's just not enough writing about the world as it is, as far as good quality music, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. But I do listen to a lot of different types, so I keep an ear out. But finding that raw acoustic kind of old sound, it's hard to find because it's been so played out that if you play a G chord and an A chord, everybody's like, oh, I've already heard a song that sounds like that. And for the musicians out there, I'd like to say to let go of that. Let go of that part of yourself that wants to be innovative and new, and rather take the same old chords and write a new song. I wrote a song when I was like 17 or 18 years old. No, it might have been 16, 17-ish. And it's called Bottle of Air. And it's 2 chords. It's E minor actually, and D. And that's it. The whole song is just those 2 chords with a chorus line and everything, but it's all the same 2 chords. Everybody I played it for just loved it. And it was a lesson for me, you know, almost 30 years ago, in simplicity. And I carried that with me. That the simpler music is often better. In the 80s, I listened to, you know, very simple music, but I would also listen to like Joe Satriani. He's an amazing guitarist, but it's just too much. It's overwhelming to me. You know, I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, but I'm not as much of a fan of, say, Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was very influenced by Hendrix. So it's not always what's being played or the style. It is the style. It's the way it's carried. And I'm not here to say what's good and bad at all. I'm just saying this, you know, if you have good music that you love, you understand where I'm coming from, whatever it might be. Even if the lyrics don't reflect our lives or anything you know, but that's a huge part of it to me, is that the lyrics are meaningful in one way or another. And, you know, actually, I was thinking about how some musicians play the guitar and others just bounce off the fretboard, like Mark Knopfler, who is the, you know, singer and guitarist for Dire Straits. You know, Sultans of Swing, Down by the Waterline, Lady Rider. Their first 2 albums are phenomenal. Communique is like one of my favorite 70s albums. It's absolutely epic. And I don't know, growing up with that, there's a lot of memories with riding with my parents in the car, listening to the music. My dad had records. He introduced me to Bob Marley, The Doors, Moody Blues, and Cat Stevens, a whole bunch of other, you know, awesome music. And I love Cat Stevens. So even though he became Yusef or whatever, and everybody called him a traitor because he moved off to the Middle East, and there's a whole story about it. But music is separate to me from who's playing it, for what their values are, what their religion is, what color they are, what sex they are. Either I like it or I don't. And so that's really, I guess, all I have to say. Just wanted to, you know, actually my son, my 10-year-old son, he just came home like a couple weeks ago. He's like, yeah, I want to, he's in 5th grade. He's like, yeah, it's the first year I can do band. He's like, I want to do band, so later I can play keyboards and stuff like that. He's like, I want to play the trombone, of all things. I'm like, wow. So we went down yesterday and we rented a trombone. The guy showed us how to grease the slides and everything, and it's a whole new instrument to me. I've never even played with horn instruments. And I was in a band when I was like 15, and I played bass, and my buddy played guitar, and my other friend played drums, and we just played horrible music, doing like covers of, you know, Metallica. Like The Small Hours was one we always played all the time, because it was one of the only songs we knew. But my first experience playing music on stage was at the teen center. And we're like 14, 15 years old, and we got this band together. And our friend's band needed an opening band to play for this, and this is a little venue, you know, maybe 100 people if you could fit that many in there. And so we're like, let's get a band together. We have a few days to practice. We'll write a bunch of songs and open up for them. So we did, but we ended up playing Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana over and over and over because it was the only song we practiced. But everybody loved it. And I don't know, those moments of just being there with the live music. In fact, this one moment popped into my head because everything was at the floor level, so there were these kids jumping around and slam dancing, you know, trying to mosh to it. And this one kid kept coming up and bumping into my amplifier, which was a vintage, God, what was it? It wasn't a Marshall. It might have been a Marshall, but anyway, it was like a full stack single unit vintage Marshall cabinet that was my uncle's from the 60s or 70s, perfect condition, and this dude kept running into it. And this guy comes up and he bumps into it, and it starts like tipping. And I remember I held the thing down, and then I just put my foot out, and just pushed him down into the back into the people. I was 15, those are the memories. But anyway, as far as music goes, I love Fish, Grateful Dead, all the hippie music, if you will. But I also love to go to metal concerts. I mean, I loved going to see Anthrax and Iron Maiden was my first concert. Metallica and Overkill and Pantera, Slayer. I love it all. And without music, I just don't know where I would be in this world. It's something that can pull me out of a funk when I'm in a funk. Something where you wake up in the morning, you're not in the right mood, you just pop on some tunes and you feel better. So anyway, that's the end of my ramble. Let me know what you think about music. It's always interesting that some people just don't listen to it. It just fascinates me. But anyway, thoughts for another time. Take care.